for 104 years, and some even earlier, and they are still here, and they become the leaders of that herd, and everyone else follows. So the value of these conferences is immense, because it does get people to see that South Africa is an investable destination, and we are indeed open for business and open for investments. And thank you very much for your investments today. Now, these occasions not only give investors a glimpse of what South Africa has to offer, but having us all in this room enables frank exchanges on exactly what the challenges are and how we can best resolve them. As some of the investors came upstage here, you saw me exchanging words with them. They were whispering in my ear and saying, Mr. President, we would like this and this to be opened. This type of legislation, this type of permitting should be done. And that is what the value of this is all about. So, were they lobbying? I don't know, but they were talking to me. 4 years ago, we set ourselves an ambitious target of raising 1.3 trillion rand, 1.2 trillion rand rather, over a 5-year period. The 80 investment pledges at today's conference come to a total of 332 billion rand. That was announced today. Now, if you are like me and you add up sums very quickly, with the pledges we have received today and with the cancellations and additions we have heard about from investors in previous conferences, we've now taken the total level of investment pledge at the 4th investment conference to 1.14 trillion rand. Now, with just 1 year left to go, we have now reached 95% of the ambitious target that we set 4 years ago. What this means is that we now only have 60 billion rand short of our target to hit 1.2 trillion rand. Is that not a great achievement already? Now, I'm not a soothsayer or a magician or a prophet. I expect that by next year we will not only reach our target, but we are going to exceed that target of 1.2 trillion rand. The investment commitments that have been made here today are most impressive. They're impressive not only by virtue of their cumulative value of the investments themselves, but also by the sheer number and diversity of projects that they represent. Today, we've had commitments from many companies based here in South Africa, but also companies from a number of countries. And it's important that I should mention some of these countries, because there's been this notion that we're losing traction, the world is turning against us and all that. Now, the companies that have come forward to make pledges come from countries such as Belgium, Canada, China, the Czech Republic, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Mauritius, Norway, Pakistan, Sweden, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, the United States, and the United Kingdom. That is a good collection of countries to have as your investors. Now, the sectors are in renewable energy projects, and we have the plans that will build some of the components that these projects will use. So some of these plans already exist in various parts of our country, from biogas to solar, from wind to battery storage. These investments are at the cutting edge of one of the most important growth industries in South Africa. There are investments that are breathing new life into mining, one of the country's oldest industries and still one of the most important. Some had suggested that mining in South Africa is a sunset industry, but today's pledges and some of the pledges we've had in the past are a clear demonstration that mining in South Africa is indeed on the resurgence, and it is a sunrise industry. Through these investments, we will be expanding our production of the platinum metal group and other minerals that are vital to the emerging technologies of the future. It is pleasing that there are several investments in metal fabrication, as we saw here, and other manufacturing. The investments in steel, vanadium, aluminium, and other manufacturing plants all contribute to our ongoing effort to add value to the minerals that we mine and to create jobs that would otherwise have gone to more industrialized countries. We've been talking about beneficiation for a number of years, and having spoken about it, preached about it, we're beginning now to see more and more fruition. We have heard about investments that are giving effect to our ambition to produce our own vaccines and other pharmaceuticals, both for our country and for our continent, Africa. We're excited about the investments in our film, design, and other creative industries, where there is huge untapped potential and more than enough talent. I had the occasion just last week to go, or was it this week, to go to the Cape Town Film Studios and heard about how Netflix has committed, and it was announced earlier, quite a lot of money to produce some of their series and cartoons and all those things here in South Africa. But I also had the great privilege of talking to Anand Singh, one of our country's great film makers and producers, and he is here today with us. And he's building a huge studio in Durban, and he told me about billions that he's going to be investing. And I said, Anand, come to the conference. And he was supposed to go to some big conference or award evening in Lausanne in Switzerland, and he ditched them for us. And I'm glad that he's here with us. So Anand, thank you very much, but also thank you for the commitment that you and others in the creative industries are demonstrating to our country. This is one of the areas that I've also spoken about, even in State of the Nation addresses, about creating these new industries, supporting those who are in those industries and ensuring that we create a very good environment for people like Anand Singh, who struggled for quite some years to get the piece of land, which should never have happened, but finally it is all settled, and the studio worth more than 7.5 billion rand is now going to go on, and it's going to create thousands and thousands of jobs in Durban, in KZN, which is much needed. Today we've had confirmation of the export potential of the country's automotive sector and its continued contribution to developing emerging businesses through its value chain. And I had occasion when we opened one of those automotive centers, I think it was the SEZ here, and with Premier Makura, to hear how this company is actually going to be supporting almost 200 small and medium enterprises from the townships, from Mamelodi and the surrounding areas. And already they are dealing with those companies and creating great value and creating good jobs. We welcome the investments in infrastructure and logistics, in property and telecommunications, which will help expand the capacity of our economy and improve its competitiveness. We have seen investment commitments in agriculture, our oldest industry, and in the digital economy, our newest. In the course of this investment conference, we've been given a sense of the value and potential of our special economic zones and of the important role that our development finance institutions and other funding agencies have in promoting growth and transformation. This investment conference has also provided us with a glimpse into the South African economy of the future, an economy that is rich and diverse and growing. It is pleasing that a number of investors here have spoken either on the platforms or in other places of conversation of the need to develop the skills of young people and to empower the women of our country. I want to thank you all for your attendance, for the investments, commitments that you have made, but above all for being here as a demonstration of faith in this country. I want to thank the sponsors for their generosity. I met some of you last night, and I'd like to thank you because you helped to make these conferences very successful. And these are Anglo-American, Naspers, Vodacom, Exaro, South African breweries, Huawei, and Discovery. I also want to thank our partners, the IDC, Invest SA, and Proudly South Africa. But I also want to thank the Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Minister Ibrahim Patel, as well as the other ministers who serve on the Ministerial Committee, who have been working behind the scenes since the middle of last year to ensure that this conference succeeds. There was a time, yes, let's give them a round of applause. There was a time when I thought that COVID-19 had really dealt a devastating blow against these types of conferences where we bring investors together, but they soldiered on. Ministers continued meeting behind the scenes and making sure that this conference does take place. So when they brought it to Cabinet and said we are proceeding, I was truly pleasantly surprised. So thank you, and give them a round of applause again. Now, I also have to give a special word of thank you to our investment envoys. When we appointed the investment envoys, people just sort of dismissed it and said, we're just adding people and you rely on people outside and all that. And I felt that we needed to have people who will play a particular special role, some of whom who are in business and some of whom who have been in government. And in their new roles, they play an incredibly positive and dynamic role. And they are Phumzile Langeni, Jaco Marie, Nkebisi Jonas, Trevor Manuel, Derek Hanekom, and Jeff Khadebe. I thank them for their commitment that they have continued to show, interacting with our investors both here and offshore, and also fielding tough and difficult questions from investors and presenting the many opportunities of our country and always being very positive. Thank you very much, colleagues, for the work that you do. Now, I also want to thank the other people who really get things done. My economic advisor, Trudy Makaya, and the organizing committee, and all the government departments, agencies, and entities that have contributed to the success of this conference. Thanks should also go to our partners in business, in labor and civil society, for the positive and proactive spirit that they have brought to the organizing process and for supporting the conference and its objectives. And of course, I'd like to thank the media as well for being here and for beaming the proceedings of this conference throughout the day, and those who've been streaming it and those who've been following it online, enabled by our media participants. So thank you very much. In conclusion, I want to recall what Adrian Gore, the CEO of Discovery, said this morning. He said, we're having a tough time, but the future will be better. We must take a long-term view and must change the narrative. Changing the narrative about South Africa is really at the core of what we all need to do collectively. As government, as business, as labor and community leaders, we are all in this together. And I'd like to thank you for standing by South Africa, standing by the people of South Africa as we recover. Not recover, as we recover and rebuild. As we build an economy that is diverse, that's vibrant, that is sustainable, and that benefits all the people of this great land. So thank you very much for making this conference successful and making South Africa peep into the future with great hope, knowing that we will indeed become the prosperous country that Nelson Mandela envisaged. Thank you very much.